This is week 1, day 2. We used a previous lab from the other class to review routing basics. We did very little, talked a little bit about course review, and we designed our own router lab to we use the lab, but the optional lab on configuring a router, but we designed our own in class. Students had some questions about we set the DCE on the router so that they can understand that. So I gave an example clear back when, actually after 9/11 now, but anyway, when schools wanted access to the internet, they've got these 2501 routers, Cisco routers, and they connected to a box which was a CSU DSU, but it was a data communications equipment, so this was the data termination equipment, and they would have the terminal side here, and then this would be the DCE, and it was a box, and then it connected into, at that time, the Iowa Communications Network. And then this interface, this cabling, V.35s, we actually have a bunch of those cables. It's what we're using to connect the routers here when we do this WAN connection. So somewhere the clocking has to be done. It's usually done by these devices. Here's your service provider. You have your data equipment. They have their equipment connects, and it does clocking so that this communication can exist. Then you have data equipment on the other end. We configured this. I configured router 21, and then the students configured their routers, and they got these communications to work. So what we were able to configure was being able to ping between these two routers. You should have been able to ping between these two and these two. What we could not do, I'll use a red to represent that, we couldn't ping these networks. Okay, so this network couldn't ping down here or vice versa. The reason was we didn't have any routes. This router could see its neighbor, but it couldn't see any of these networks over here. Same thing here. These routers could see their neighbor, but they couldn't see these other networks. So to fix that, we either create static routes, which is the next chapter, and the chapter after that we do dynamic routes. So this was a network that was pre-configured and would still be configured today. So we had these connections. There are more than that, but we talked about how they connected, and in this scenario they're using OSPF as the routing protocol. it's sharing information between routers so that the routers have routes to the other networks. We had down here we have VLANs with multiple routes. And we talked about the path that a packet would take. We didn't do any work down here, but the path a packet would take in order to get out of the network. So we talked about default routes. The routing protocol allowed us to have access back in to these networks. So it was a good example. So that was the routing table in here, and so you could see the directed connected routes, those 4, and then those other routes from OSPF were down in here, these networks down here. There were some other ones over here. No, really primarily those in this scenario. From that example then, we looked at the routing table. Let me move this over a little bit. So we have directly connected routes. This is an external OSPF route, and these are OSPF routes. These would be the LANs, internal LANs on all those networks. And then these were connected routes. Default going out. See, that's a connected route right there. And these were the other inside routers that we were looking at. 23 was connected, 16, 18, and up here 12. So we have the administrative distance and the metric. We will go, okay, see them here, the directly connected ones. Okay, I was the same routing table, and that's it.